And the assumption is, okay, so you've done your job, now you're on. But no, he continues, right? We're told that Idiomentus, at line 405 or so, skewed Amiris straight through the mouth, the merciless brazen spear point raking through, up under the brain to split the glistening skull, teeth shattered out, both eyes brimmed to the lids with a gush of blood, and both nostrils spurting, mouth gaping, blowing convulsive sprays of blood. The death's dark cloud closed down around the corpse. This brutal description in the Iliad, again, I'm just pointing out to you some of the powerful language. Hector knows at line 435. Hector speeding horses swept him away, armor and all, leaving his men to face their fate. Trojans trapped but struggling on in the deep trench. Hundreds of plunging war teams dragging chariots down, snapping the yoke poles, ditched their masters' cars, and Patroclus charged them, heart afire for the kill, shouting his Argives forward. Obviously he's disobeying Achilles, right? Slaughter Trojans, he cries. Cries of terror breaking as Trojans choked all roads. Their lines ripped to pieces. Up from under the hooves, a dust storm swirling into the clouds as rearing horses broke into stride again and galloped back to Troy, leaving ships and shelters in their way. Patroclus, wherever he saw the biggest masses of dashing before him, there he steered, plowing ahead with savage cries, and fighters tumbled out of their chariots head first, crushed under their axles, war cries crashing over. Yes, but straight across the trench went his own careening team at a superhuman bound. So in other words, you've got these horses that are amazing. Magnificent racing stallions, gifts of the gods to Peleus, shining immortal gifts, straining breakneck on as Patroclus' high courage urged him against Prince Hector, keen for the kill, but Hector's veering horses swept him clear. So you've got then the disobedience, if you will, of Patroclus to Achilles' desire. Patroclus will kill a warrior named Hector, and the description is remarkable at line 480. Patroclus, rising beside Thetos, stabbed his right cheekbone, ramming the spearhead square between his teeth so hard he hooked him by the spearhead over the chariot rail. So he's on the chariot, he sticks him with the sword, with the spear, and then he drags his body out over the edge of the chariot, hoisted, dragged the Trojan out as an angler perched. It's an interesting simile. As an angler perched on a jutting rock ledge, drags some fish from the sea, some noble catch with line and glittering bronze hook. So with the spear, Patroclus gaffed him off his car, his mouth gaping round in the glittering point, and flipped him down face first. We're told then at line 490, 498, 99, 500, but now, Sarpedon, watching his comrades drop and die, war shirts billowing free as Patroclus killed him, dressed his godlike Lycians down with a harsh shout. Now we're going to have taunting of Sarpedon. Lycians, where's your pride? Where are you running? Now be fast to attack. I'll take him on myself. See who he is who routs us, wrecking havoc against us, cutting the legs from under squads of good brave men. It's not clear whether the Trojans have yet figured out that this is not Achilles, but rather Patroclus. Sarpedon says, I don't care, I'm going to fight him. Sarpedon, the son of Zeus. With that, he leapt from his chariot fully armed and hit the ground, and Patroclus straight across as soon as he saw him leapt from his car too. As a pair of crook-clawed, hook-beaked vultures swooped to fight, streaming above some jagged rock, another epic simile. So with their battle cries they rushed each other there. And Zeus, the son of Cronos, with Cronos' twisting ways, filling with pity now to see the two great fighters, said to Hera, his sister, and his wife, my cruel fate, my Sarpedon, the man I love the most, my own son, doomed to die at the hands of Menelaus' son, Patroclus. My heart is torn in two as I try to weigh all this. Shall I pluck him up now, while he's still alive, and set him down in the rich green land of Lycia, far from the war at Troy and all its tears? Or beat him down at Patroclus' hands at last? Notice Zeus. The question for him is, do I get involved? Do I save my boy Sarpedon? Now it's fascinating that he would even ask this question, because Zeus has all the power he wants. He can do whatever he wants. And we've got all kinds of examples of men who were sons of gods or goddesses who, of course, have been saved. I mean, hello, think about the different ways that this has already transpired, right? Of course, the queen, Hera, she has her own vested interests. She will reply, her eyes wide, protested strongly, dread majesty, son of Cronos, what are you saying? A man, a mere mortal, his doom sealed long ago? You'd set him free from all the pains of death? Do as you please, Zeus, but none of the deathless gods will ever praise you. You're never going to get your Kleos. This is work before it, right? And I tell you this, take it to heart, I urge you. If you send Sarpedon home, living still, beware. Then surely some other god will want to sweep his own son clear of the heavy fighting too. We think of Ares in the last book that found out that his son had been killed, right? Look down. Many who battle round King Priam's mighty walls are sons of the deathless gods. You will inspire lethal anger in them all. No, dear as he is to you and your heart grieves for him, leave Sarpedon there to die in the brutal onslaught, beaten down at the hands of Patroclus. And once his soul and the life force have left him, send death to carry him home, send soothing sleep all the way till they reach the broad land of Lycia. There his brothers and countrymen will bury the prince with full royal rites, with rounded tomb and pillar. We think of Beowulf at the conclusion of Beowulf 3. These are the solemn honors owed the dead. So she pressed, and Zeus, the father of men and gods, complied at once. But he showered tears of blood that drenched the earth. Showers in praise of him, his own dear son, the man Patroclus was just about to kill, on Troy's fertile soil, far from his fatherland. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. Patroclus will kill Sarpedon, and of course, Zeus is torn because of it, right? Sarpedon then will speak his last words to Glaucus at lines 580 or so. So now Sarpedon, captain of Lycian's shieldmen, died at Patroclus' hand and died raging still, crying out his beloved comrade's name. Glaucus, oh dear friend, dear fighter, soldier's soldier. Now is the time to prove yourself a spearman, a daring man of war. Now, if you are brave, make grueling battle your one consuming passion. First, find Lycia's captains, range the ranks. In other words, now he's handing on the power to Glaucus. Spur them to fight and shield Sarpedon's body. Then you, Glaucus, you fight for me with bronze. You'll hang your head in shame every day of your life if the Argives strip your armor here in the anchored ships where I have gone down fighting. Hold on, full force, spur all our men to battle. Let's point out that Sarpedon's death will prefigure all of the deaths to come. You have the death, you have the fighting over the corpse, you have the issue of the armor. Of course, you have collateral damage because of the death of each one, right? Death, we're told, cut Sarpedon short. Sending Glaucus then to find Hector, and he will say to Hector, Hector, he taunts Hector and challenges Hector at line 630, you've wiped your allies from your mind, and all for you, Hector, far from their loved ones, far from native land. They bleed their lives away, but you won't lift a hand to fight beside them. There lies Sarpedon, lord of Lycia's shieldmen, who defended his realm with just decrees and power. Ares has cut him down with Patroclus' brazen spear. Quick, my friends, stand by him. Cringe with shame at the thought they'll strip his gear and maim his corpse. These Myrmidons, seething for all the Argive troops we've killed, we speared to death against their fast, trim ships. And, of course, this will resonate for Hector. They will fight over Sarpedon's body. We've got all kinds of remarkable images. I wish I could read more. Go to 743 or so. Not even a Hawkeye scout could still make out Sarpedon because there's so much fighting around his body. The man's magnificent body covered over head to toe, buried under a mass of weapons, blood, and dust. But they still kept swarming round and round the corpse like flies. Amazing simile. Like flies in a sheepfold buzzing over the brimming pails in the first spring days when the buckets flood with milk. So, we're told, veteran troops kept swarming round that corpse, never pausing. Nor did mighty Zeus for a moment turn his shining eyes from the clash of battle. He kept them fixed, line 750. He kept them fixed on the struggling mass forever, the Father's spirit churning, thrashing out the ways, the numberless ways to cause Patroclus' slaughter, to kill him too in his present bloody rampage over Sarpedon's splendid body. Hector in glory, cutting Patroclus down with hacking bronze, then tearing the handsome warrior off his back, or let him still more piling up the kills, right? That is to say, Zeus has to make up his mind. Am I going to kill Patroclus now, or am I going to let him have a little bit more Kleos glory? As true, Zeus turned things over. That way seemed the best. The valiant friend of arms, in arms of Peleus' son Achilles, would drive the Trojans, and Hector, helmed in bronze, back to Troy once more, killing them by platoons. And Zeus began with Hector. He made the man a coward. Hector, leaping back in his chariot, swerving to fly, shouted out fresh orders, retreat, Trojans. Now he knew that Zeus had tipped the scales against him, right? In that regards, then, we've got the issue of how Sarpedon's body becomes then the touchstone in many ways, right? Well, Zeus then has Apollo save Sarpedon's body and take it back to the land of Lycia, right? Patroclus will disobey, right, at line 800 or so. But Patroclus, giving a cry to Automedon, whipping on his team, Patroclus went for Troy's and Lycia's lines, blind in his fatal frenzy, luckless soldier. If only he had obeyed Achilles' strict command, he might have escaped his doom, the stark night of death. But the will of Zeus, back to the opening lines of the poem, right, will always overpower the will of men. Zeus, who strikes fear in even the bravest men of war, and tears away his triumph all in a lightning flash. And at other times he will spur a man to battle, just as he urged Patroclus' fury now. Patroclus almost takes Troy. And in fact, on 3 times he tries, and on the 4th time, finally, we're told, then at Patroclus, at line 825, then at Patroclus' 4th assault, like something superhuman, he's beyond human now. The god Apollo shrieked down his winging words of terror, "Back, Patroclus, prince, go back. It's not the will of fate that the proud Trojan citadel fall before your spear, not even before Achilles, far greater man than you." It's significant to point out that in this poem, this great poem that celebrates Achilles and his rage, Achilles will never see the fall of Troy. He will, of course, be killed by, of all people, Paris, and therefore not be allowed, right? And Patroclus gained ground, backing a good way off, clear of the deadly archer's wrath. But now Hector, we're told at line 830, reining his high-strung team at the Scaean gates, debated a moment at the walls of Troy, waiting. Should he drive back to the rout and soldier on, or call his armies now to rally within the ramparts? As he turned things over, Apollo stood beside him, taking the shape of that lusty, rugged fighter, Asius, an uncle of stallion-breaking Hector, a blood brother of Hecuba, son of Dymas, who lived in Phthia, right? Like him, Apollo, the son of Zeus, incited Hector. "Hector, why stop fighting, neglecting your duty? If only I outfought you as you outfought me, I'd soon teach you to shrink your work in war. You'd pay the price, I swear. Up with you, fast! Lash those pounding stallions straight at Patroclus. You might kill him still. Apollo might give you glory." Well, Patroclus sees him coming. And Sarpedon, he will kill the driver of Hector, right? And then after he throws a rock at him and he smashes him in the face and he kills him, and Sarpedon goes flying out of the chariot, Patroclus will taunt him at line 870 or a few lines before it. "Look," he says, "what a springy man, a nimble, flashy tumbler. Just think what he'd do at sea where the fish swarm. Why, the man would glut a fleet, diving for oysters, plunging overboard, even in choppy, heavy seas, just as he dives to ground for this war car now. Even these Trojans have their tumblers. What a leap!" Well, of course, this will lead then to the fight over Sarpedon's corpse, right? And the ultimate test now between the two is coming, right? At line 910, Patroclus charged the army, fired for the kill. 3 times he charged with a headlong spear of Ares, screaming his savage cry. 3 times he killed 9 men. Then on the 4th assault, Patroclus, like something superhuman, again said, then Patroclus, the end of life, came blazing up before you. And again, this construction with the second pronoun. The poet turns and speaks directly to Patroclus and says, "Yes, the Lord Apollo met you there in the heart of battle. The god, the terror, Patroclus, never saw him coming." These are the final lines now of the book. Moving across the deadly rout, shrouded in the thick mist, and on he came against him, Apollo. And looming up behind Patroclus now, slammed his broad shoulders and back with the god's flat hand, and his eyes spun as Apollo knocked the helmet off his head, Achilles' helmet. And under his horse's hoofs it tumbled, clattering on with its 4-formed horns, and its hollow blank eyes, and its plumes were all smeared in the bloody dust, forbidden before this to defile its crest in dust. First time that this helmet has ever hit the dust. It guarded the head and handsome brow of a god, a man like a god, Achilles. But now, the father gave it over to Hector to guard his head in war, since Hector's death was closing on him quickly. The tragedy of this. In the moment that Hector will kill Patroclus, he, of course, is killing himself and by extension Troy. Patroclus, though, the spear in his grip was shattered, and the whole of its rugged bronze shod, shadow-casting length, and his shield with straps and tassels dropped from his shoulders, flung onto the ground, and the Lord Apollo, the son of Zeus, wrenched his breastplate off, so the armor is now missing as well as the helmet. Disaster seized him, his fine legs buckling. He stood there senseless. Now, right at his back, close up, a Dardan fighter speared him squarely between the shoulder blades with a sharp lance. So first, Apollo Jackson, in the back, knocks off his helmet, knocks off his armor. Second, Pantheus' son, Euphobius, the best of his own age at spears and a horseman's skill and a speed of foot. And even in this, his first attack in chariots, just learning the arts of war. In other words, Patroclus is taken down by a novitiate fighter. He brought down 20 drivers off their cars. He was the first to launch a spear against you, Patroclus, O my rider, but did not bring you down. yanking out his ashen spear from your body. Back he dashed and lost himself in the crowd. So in other words, he wounds Patroclus in the back, but then he runs away. The man could not stand up to Patroclus. Here in mortal combat, stripped, defenseless as he was, Patroclus, stunned by the spear and the god's crushing blow, was weaving back to his own thronging comrades, trying to escape death. Line 950, Hector, waiting, watching. The great-hearted Patroclus trying to stagger free, seeing him wounded there. With the sharp bronze came rushing into him right across the lines and rammed his spear shaft home, stabbing deep in the bowels, and the brazen point went jutting straight out through Patroclus's back. Down he crashed. Horror gripped the Achaean armies. As when some lion, notice this simile, as when some lion overpowers a tireless wild boar up on a mountain summit, battling in all their fury over a little spring of water, both beasts craving to slack their thirst, but the lion beats him down with sheer brute force as the boar fights for breath. So now, with a close thrust, Hector the son of Priam tore the life from the fighting son of Menteos, from Patroclus, whom he had killed so many men in war, and gloried over him wild winging words. Now Hector will taunt Patroclus. Patroclus, surely you must have thought you'd storm my city down, you'd wrest from the wives of Troy their day of freedom, drag them off in ships to your own dear fatherland, you fool. Retreating in their defense, my war team, Hector's horses, were charging out to battle, galloping full stretch. And I, with my spear, Hector, shining among my combat-loving comrades, I fight away from them the fatal day. But you, the vultures, will eat your body raw. This kind of rough language about what's going to happen next. Poor, doomed, not for all his power could Achilles save you now, but Hector says, and how he must have filled your ears with orders, the irony here, as you went marching out and the heroes stayed behind. The irony, of course, is that Achilles gave him the exact opposite orders. He said, don't go out. Now you don't come back to the hollow ships, you hear? Patroclus, master horseman, not till you've slashed the shirt around his chest and soaked it with red and blood of man-killing Hector. So he must have commanded you. You maniac, you obeyed. The ironies, of course, mounting here. Hector said, I'm sure that Achilles told you to come and find me and kill me and not come back to the ships until you had killed me. Exactly the opposite, of course. Struggling for breath, the poet now, speaking directly to Patroclus. You answered, Patroclus, O my writer, Hector, now is your time to glory to the skies. Kleos, now the victory is yours. A gift of the son of Kronos, Zeus, Apollo too. They brought me down with all their deathless seas. They are the ones who tore the armor off my back. Even if 20 Hectors had charged against me, they'd have all died here laid low by my spear. No deadly fate in league with Apollo killed me from the ranks of men, Euphobius. In other words, you didn't actually kill me, he says. I was already wounded. You came third, and all you could do is finish off my life. One more thing. Take it to heart, I urge you. You too. You won't live long yourself, I swear. Already, I see them looming up beside you. Death and the strong force of fate to bring you down at the hands of Aeacus' great royal son. And then his last word in his life is Achilles. Say two quick things here for your notes. Many scholars have pointed out that the Greeks believed that someone who was at that last moment of life actually could have the power of prophesying. For example, when we study Plato's Apology, at the very end of his life, at the end of that trial, Socrates, who knows that he's going to have to drink his hemlock shake and get jacked, right? He has the ability to kind of forecast and to predict, and here we have the same thing. And he says it to Hector, death's coming for you. This won't take long. Death cut him short. The end closed in around him, flying free of his limbs. His soul went winging down to the house of death, willing his fate, leaving his manhood far behind his young and supple strength. But glorious Hector taunted Patroclus' body, dead as he was. Why, Patroclus, why prophesy my doom, my sudden death? Who knows? Achilles, the son of sleek-haired Thetis, might outrace me, struck by my spear first, and gasp away his life. With that, he planted a heel against Patroclus' chest, wrenched his brazen spear from the wound, kicked him over, flat on his back, free and clear of the weapon. And at once he went for the magnificent, immortal horses of Achilles to try to acquire them. We'll have more to say about them in book 17. Well, at 2a, obviously messages. Disobedience did lead to Patroclus' death, right? The idea that you can't defy the gods, this, remember, was a religious text, and to that degree, we have that message here. Notice, though, an important message here as well is that Hector doesn't realize it's over for him and for Troy, right? That is to say, one act clearly has all kinds of repercussions, correct? At level 2B and the symbols that we're messing with here, I want to comment, because we haven't really commented very much about this whole thing of the corpses, the symbolism of the corpses and the armor, right? In other words, what is going on with this? Okay, so you kill the person, but then you've got to do nasties to the body and take the armor. And you've got to do this insulting thing that goes on with it as well. Well, again, it's the symbolism that that's when the fight is over. Only when you have completely humiliated your opponent. Of course, the irony that will be a part of this one, there's many of them, isn't there? Achilles' prayer is only half answered. Hector himself does not know, as we said. At 3a, how are you going to relate this to other texts? Well, what other texts that you know of where disobedience leads to somebody getting jacked? A text, maybe, for example, where one act of heroism leads to death. We already mentioned Beowulf Part 3, and Beowulf versus the dragon, which in the end will lead to his death, and his request to be remembered with a barrow, a lighthouse. At 3b, what's a time, you knew this was coming, what's a time you disobeyed and for it you had to suffer? What's a time your success, think of Hector here now, led to your failure? Well, there's book 16. Patroclus is dead. Achilles waiting at his tents. Of course, Achilles is going to find out what it is that Hector has done. And the end is now coming, right? Book 17 will be called Menelaus' finest hour. We're going to have a fight over Patroclus' body, as we saw with Sarpedon, a classic example. But by book 22, again, we pick up 17 next, but by book 22, Achilles will, of course, have jacked Hector. And that will be, really, the end of the Iliad. It all kind of comes to its penultimate fruition.